Hello everyone and welcome back to the FIDE World Cup. We are in the second game of the classical time format. It is Magnus Carlsen versus Praggnanandhaa, and it's an incredibly important match for both of them. For Pragg, it would mean that he actually defeated Magnus Carlsen in a match, and this is still classical, so it will mean that if he wins this game, it will mean that he defeated Magnus Carlsen in a classical match. And for Magnus, it's also incredibly important because the FIDE World Cup is the only tournament that Magnus Carlsen never won, aside from the official random world championship, but that's not technically chess. That being said, let's check it out, and then we're gonna discuss what happened in the game. Magnus has the white pieces, and he opens with pawn to e4. Pragg replies with pawn to e5. He also waited a little bit to make his first move, like Magnus did in the previous game. Knight to f3, knight to c6, and here pretty much no one could have anticipated this. Everyone thought, okay, it's either going to be a Joko Piano, although not very likely, probably a Rui Lopez. But no, Magnus goes for knight to c3, the 3 knights opening, which almost exclusively means the 4 knights game. So Pragg goes knight to f6, and the bishop to b5, the Spanish variation of the 4 knights, and Pragg goes knight to d4. This is the so-called Rubinstein gambit, and should white accept this gambit, it can be a very, very exciting game. For example, if knight captures on e5, you grab the pawn, then you get queen e7, attacks the knight, and once the knight moves, you're gonna pick up the bishop here, let's say captures, and queen captures on e4 with check, queen to e2, and not a lot happening here. That's one way to do it, but capturing an e5 will just give black a very nice game. So instead, we have knight captures on d4 by Magnus, and now e captures on d4. We have pawn to e5, now offering to trade knights, and Pragg obliges. We have d captures on c3, e captures on f6, and queen captures on f6. Already, he has a queen in the game. And here comes d captures on c3. And of course, it seems like Magnus just blundered a piece here, because why not just deliver a check and pick up the bishop here? Well, if you do this queen to e5 check, it will be met with a bishop to e2, or simply queen to e2, which will also guard the bishop here. So here we have bishop to c5. Even though queen to e5 check is the most played move here, bishop to c5 does seem to be a bit more aggressive. We have queen to e2 with check, and now comes queen to e6, blocking check with the queen and offering a queen trade. And it doesn't look like all that much for Magnus. He just trades queens. It will be the exact same material on the board, with Magnus having his pawn structure messed up. So not something you want to look for if you are looking for advantage with white out of the opening. But even more interestingly, the game, this exact same position has been reached in 2011 in a game between Nigel Short and Vladimir Kramnik, and Short actually lost this with white to Kramnik in the London Chess Classic. But okay. That was a long time ago, and that was Vladimir Kramnik. We have bishop to f4 now. Magnus continues developing, and now queen captures on e2. The queens get traded off the board. We have captures, and now Pragg definitely took his time here. He wanted to make sure that he's not missing anything, as the bishop to f4 line isn't played as often as that queen to e5 line that we mentioned. So c6 chases away Magnus's bishop, bishop to d3, and pawn to d5. And now, although you could play a4, you could play b4, Magnus plays pawn to c4, looking for ways to get rid of his double c pawn. And okay, we have d captures on c4, bishop captures, and now bishop to f5. That cannot be played as the bishop moved, and rook h to d1. Getting the rook to the open d file, and of course, do you capture on c2? That's the question. Well, it of course can be played, but after capturing on c2, then rook d to c1 will be played, attacking the bishop. And once the bishop moves, doesn't really matter where, then you have all sorts of discoveries with a nice rook captures on c5 afterwards. Even a nice bishop captures on f7 can be played, and then rook captures on c5. So again, nothing spectacular here. This is still a dead draw. So instead, we have castles by Pragg, and now bishop back to d3, offering a trade of light square bishops. Bishop to e6, Pragg declines, and now king back to f1. We have rook f to e8 and pawn to b3, preparing pawn to c4. We have rook 8 to d8. Pragg gets his rooks on the only 2 open files on the board, the d and d file, and rook to e1. You have to make room for the a1 rook. We have pawn to h6 and rook 8 to d1. So exact same material, exact same pawn structure, exact same like showing the exact same material. Both players have a bishop pair and a rook pair. King to f8, and now pawn to f3. We have bishop to b4, attacking Magnus's rook here, rook to e4. Attacking the bishop, we have bishop back to c5, and rook d to e1. Now Magnus doubles up on the e-file, bishop to d5, and now we have a trade. Rook captures, and bishop back to f5. Rook captures on e1 with check, king captures, and king to e7. So now again, the exact same material, 6 pawns each, a bishop pair, 2 bishop pairs each. We have pawn to c4, chases away the bishop, bishop to e6, and Magnus trades. We have captures, and pawn to h3, pawn to h5, stopping pawn to g4, and now king to e2. We have pawn to g6, and he was in this position on move 30 that Magnus and Praggnanandhaa agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. So why did Magnus do this with the white pieces? Why didn't he try to, make it a 7-hour game, try to torture Prague as long as possible, try to find some sort of a position that you can play endlessly until he breaks Prague? Well, there are 2 possible reasons. One, although not a very likely one, is that he hates classical chess so much, one of the reasons why he's not defending his World Chess Championship title, that he wanted to take this match into Rapids and then possibly even Blitz and show that he's the greatest player in all-time formats. But like I said, very unlikely. The other possible reason is that, as he already mentioned in an interview with FIDE after his previous game, he had food poisoning and he wasn't feeling all that great. And, a 7-hour game isn't all that great, I imagine, when you're suffering from food poisoning. If you haven't seen this interview, it's a very short. Do check it out. I will put a link to it in the description below. Will be the first thing you see. So, you can also check that out as well. But yeah, this is the second classical game between Magnus and Prague. Somewhat squandered the white pieces there, but what are you gonna do? There obviously is a reason, and we're I'm not sad. I'm actually very happy that we are going to get another day of chess, and today we could only get 1 game. If the match ended, but tomorrow it is possible. It's possible that we get as many games as possible, because you're gonna have 2 rapid games of 25-minute format, 2 rapid games of 10-minute format, then you're going to have 2 blitz games of 5-minute format. That's already 6 games, and then you go into sudden death, where the first player that wins just wins it all. So we could have many games tomorrow, and I am very happy for that. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and a little bit of extra info about the food poisoning. Like I said, first link in the description below. I would like to thank Robert Blom, GroznyChessFestival.org, Phil Malthus, Franz Pankart, and David Kimura for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, most likely with the coverage of the game Abasov versus Caruana once it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.